This planet is not terra firma. It's a delicate flower, and it must be cared for. It's lonely, it's small, it's isolated, and there is no resupply. And we are mistreating it.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all humankind. Your hosts here in England, Chris Carney and Matthew Russell.
Oh yeah, baby.
Scott Carpenter.
Scott Carpenter.
Scott Carpenter.
Yeah.
He's an astronaut that doesn't get talked about nearly half enough.
I fully agree.
Well, the reason why I mentioned Scott Carpenter, 1962, 23rd of May, Project Mercury with Scott Carpenter orbiting the Earth 3 times in Aurora 7 space capsule.
Well in, lad.
Second American ever to orbit the Earth after, of course, the great John Glenn.
Oh, we love John.
So fourth American in space, second to orbit. I think he's got a few sort of notable things. After that, he never went to space again because he had a couple of mishaps, like a motorcycle accident, and then some nerve damage he got in his arm that meant he lost the use of one of his arms, so he couldn't go back to space. But he became an aquanaut. But I think the most famous thing he ever said was, "Godspeed, John Glenn."
Legendary.
And that makes its way onto loads of tracks. In fact, weren't we talking about Nick Cave earlier on?
Yes, we were. Just before we started recording, we were talking about Nick Cave.
Yeah. I got a feeling that Godspeed, John Glenn actually appears on a Nick Cave track.
Oh, that might be one for the Spodcats, that.
What musical artists have Scott Carpenter's Godspeed, John Glenn? Be good if it was the Carpenters.
It would be good if it was the Carpenters. Or Glenn Medeiros.
Or Scott... Oh, who's the famous Scott who does those albums that
Scott Walker.
Scott Walker,
amazing,
there we go.
Amazing legend, like absolutely incredible. But yeah, it could also be Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Did they use Scott Carpenter?
Did they?
It's also a very sad day because 1543 marks the death of old Coppernickers.
Was it anything serious?
Well, I think he was quite old. He was 70 years old, I think.
Not bad for the time.
Not bad for the time, no. Copernicus died 1543 on this very day.
This very, very day.
You know what it is, Chris? You know what this episode is?
Yeah.
I think your sort of seat as the co-host always lands on Space News.
Space news, space news, space news, space news. Yes, I love space news. It's my favourite type, definitely.
I guess quite a lot's happened. So I thought I'd start with America first, get it out of the way, because obviously most space news happens in America, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, they've got it all, haven't they?
Well, I thought we'd start with booster B1058.
Cracker.
Quite an achievement, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously we've been having loads and loads of Falcon 9 launches, but this booster is actually quite incredible. It's the 8th time it's flown. It's the 4th time it's flown since January. So in spring, it's sprung up into the air 4 times, which is got to be almost a record. No, I can't think of anything else that has managed to do that. But it's the first of the boosters that was painted with the NASA worm logo. And you know why it was painted with the NASA worm logo?
Because it looks a bit like a worm.
No, that's why it's called the NASA worm logo.
No, I don't know.
The Falcon 9 booster looks like a worm.
Yeah, kind of, if you squint.
Yeah, I guess it actually looks more like a phallus.
Oof.
Which is what's so worrying about Bezos and Musk showing off their phalluses, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on there, isn't there?
There is so much. There's a lot going on psychologically with those two.
Yeah. So why?
But why? Well, 2 people that aren't psychologically damaged, and that's Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken when they went to the International Space Station, of course,
right,
on that brilliant first crewed flight test of Dragon 2. And that was this same booster. So that booster, back on the 30th of May, 2020, which is almost a year ago. Can you believe that?
Madness.
Almost a year ago. That was the first time this booster was used, which is really cool. So it's already an historic booster because it's the first time, anything has flown up from America since the space shuttle.
Yeah.
And it's the first commercial crew orbital space flight as well. So, so that booster is already a piece of history.
Yeah, it's racking up the accolades, isn't it? It's like basically, it'll become like, I have a little list on the side of it. This is what I did.
This is what I did. Yeah. It's like it's nuts. And then 51 days later, it launched. I think it's a South Korean satellite, Anasis 2. Then 78 days after that, it launched 60 Starlinks. Then another really good one is it did a Dragon resupply mission, which I think was the first of the new Dragon cargo ships on the 6th of December, 60 days after the previous launch. So it did that one. Then it did Transporter 1, which was loads and loads of satellites.
Yeah.
Then it did, 46 days after that, did another 60 Starlinks. Then 27 days after that, so less than a month, they turned it round and it launched another 60. And then 38 days after that, it launched another 52 this week.
Amazing.
That is unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just what it's done in such a short space of time is incredible.
So that one booster has launched hundreds and hundreds of satellites and a cargo vessel to the ISS and the first crewed space flight by a private company.
And about 3,000 Starlinks.
It kind of does show that SpaceX are absolutely kicking ass.
Yeah, completely.
I think there's trouble brewing with SpaceX because SpaceX is the one company that Elon Musk, it's his child, it's his brainchild.
Yeah.
But I think Elon Musk is about to just screw up massively. I think won't be able to raise ridiculous amounts of money soon. Ever since his Bitcoin fiasco.
Well, that was pretty crazy, wasn't it? I mean, I've got a very, very small amount of crypto, and a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at wow, I'd tripled what I put in. I didn't put a lot in, but it tripled, and now it's just sunk again. So it's just it's crazy.
Yeah, well, it's just gambling, isn't it? But it doesn't help when you've got this maverick at the other end. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how that all pans out. It could end up that Musk ends up getting kicked off his own, out of his own companies and stuff like that. I don't know.
It's happened before, it happened to
yeah,
Steve Jobs.
exactly.
It can happen to him.
Yeah, I suppose so. Atlas V has flown as well, but here's another cool one that I guess us Brits should be pretty chuffed about. Is a Scot has flown to space this week.
Hey.
You'd think that would be bigger news over here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I know.
Scot has gone
That's
to space.
That will be the third British astronaut, essentially.
Well, not really.
No.
Not really. Nah, because he's not flying up as a Brit. I don't know really.
Well,
I don't know how it.
Well,
I remember
Helen Sharman was civilian, wasn't she?
Yeah. And then, but there's people like Mike Foale, and quite a few others that were born in Britain who consider themselves British. Garriott and a few others. So there's been quite a few Brits, but yeah, you're right. I mean, Tim Peake's the only one who's flown under the British flag.
Yeah.
But when I was talking to Helen Sharman, she was a little bit snooty about these being called astronauts. Not snooty, but rightly so. These are suborbital flights, and they're kind of. It's only because they're going over 50 miles, 80 kilometers. Whereas a lot of people consider the Kármán line 100 kilometers as the place you've got to get to space. But also, I think really you've got to go orbital to be considered a proper astronaut.
Yeah, do you know what? I kind of agree on that one. Because where'd you draw the line? I mean, I was on an aeroplane on Friday.
That definitely doesn't go into space, Chris. I just want to point that out. I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to come round your house and give you your astronaut wings any day soon.
Well, I'm going to wait and see if it happens. I don't want you to be quashing my dreams.
Well, I'm quashing it now. But anyway, Dave McKay, Scott, with Frederick Sturckow. They flew Spaceship Two, VSS Unity, and a lot was riding on this, I think, and it was very successful. They flew. It's the first time that has been successful out of Spaceport America as well. So the first time they tried to fly out of Spaceport America back in December, the engine didn't fire correctly.
It's a big leap forward for commercial spaceflight, I think.
Well, yeah, because the next few are going to be really, really interesting as well. But the thing is, I mean, it's so behind schedule, this whole endeavor, because they actually started manufacturing Unity back in 2012. So it's almost a decade since they started building this thing, and they still haven't achieved commercial spaceflight. And the very first of these Spaceship Twos, the VSS Enterprise, of course, had a powered flight in 2013. And this is when everyone thought, oh, no, we're close. We're close now to these commercial space flights. But, of course, that was destroyed, killing a pilot and severely injuring another one in 2014.
Yeah.
And then Unity rolled out in 2016, and I think it reached its first time it went into space was in December 2018. It's taking an unbelievable long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, the same thing's happening over with Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin's New Shepard as well, which of course is its absolute rival in terms of suborbital commercial space flight.
But going toward looking at the money, I mean, what? Obviously, Musk and Bezos are light years away in terms of net worth than Branson and the Virgin Corporation, aren't they?
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know. The thing about that, I mean, I think Bezos is genuinely unfeasibly rich. Let's face it, Amazon probably isn't overvalued.
No.
And I don't think Virgin is overvalued as well. If you look at how many businesses Virgin runs, and they're all successful, profitable businesses, you know. So old Sir Dickie B, you know, he's doing all right, whereas Musk's net worth is down to the ludicrously high Tesla share price. I mean, this is what I was sort of saying earlier on. And you remember the film The Big Short or whatever it was?
Cracking film, yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Cracking film. Well, the character in that bets against the housing market, shorts the housing market.
Yeah.
Guess who's shorting Tesla shares right now?
Go on.
The same guy.
Really?
In other words, you know, yeah. So it's like Tesla, I mean, it seems remarkably overvalued, which means, of course, Musk's, you know, this thing about him being the richest man on the planet is based on that Tesla share price.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, you know, if it goes south, if it starts crashing, then suddenly he's not the wealthiest man in the world. So, you know, old Sir Dickie B, he's got 600 paying customers queued up.
Yeah.
For this ride into space. So, you know, I mean, the business model for this looks a little bit kind of close to the bone.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how it all sort of sketches out.
And
really.
it started in a record shop on Bold Street in Liverpool. How amazing is that?
Yeah, that is pretty incredible.
I actually went to see him talk. There was a business festival here back in 2012, actually, and they went to the arena, and he did a sort of Q&A with this, like an in conversation, and it was just fascinating. And I didn't know that. He was just like, it all started here. I had a record shop on Bold Street, and that's where it began. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I used to lay wooden floors, and a couple of my work colleagues and the boss would put in Richard Branson's, and he would come home and give them a crate of beer every day, and was terribly nice. You know what he's like.
The floor was all wonky.
Floor was massively wonky. So get this. So. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of the White Knight 2, which is that massive aircraft, and she's called Eve. So that was looking a little bit like it wasn't ready for this flight, which would have, been really annoying. But no, it flew, got into space, and because as long as the data looks good, it looks like they'll get their license to do this, crewed flights out of Spaceport America down in New Mexico, and so that's pretty important. So hopefully the data's all really good, and so the next flight will mean that joining the pilots will be Virgin Galactic employees. But the really cool thing about this is they are chosen like internally, and no one knows who they are yet. So there must be some really excited Virgin Galactic employees who know that they potentially are on this list of people that get to go next flight, which is this year.
That's incredible.
And then hopefully before the end of the year, there'll be a flight after that where Dickie B himself is going to fly. And obviously, once he's done that, obviously everyone's going to think, wow, yeah, this must be safe. Sir Richard Branson going up on that rocket plane is going to be big news, isn't it?
Yeah, when you're talking about the Virgin Galactic employees, I don't know if anyone else is well listening to this, but I'm totally picturing cabin crew from Virgin Atlantic.
Oh, well, it always reminds me of Jamie, who reckoned he applied to be like a Virgin Galactic cabin boy. And he'd be perfect because, he doesn't waste too much fuel because of his small snake hips stature.
Yeah, he'd be perfect.
So, quite a big news story by the end of the year if old Richard Branson's going up on his rocket ship, which is more than Musk and Bezos have done, to be fair.
Definitely. But
you're not going to catch Bezos
is he not like sort of... He's ploughing his furrow, isn't he? And that's the thing, SpaceX have got the commercial, payload deliveries and concentrating on ISS. He's going in this sort of more, like the leisure side of things. And
yeah, no, absolutely.
He might end up with a monopoly for a while there with that. But it's just where Blue Origin's going to fit into it.
Well, I think Blue Origin are actually going to be slightly ahead in this race.
Yeah.
But I think it all comes down to what you find more exciting. Sitting on top of a rocket and then sort of free falling back down, or being on this controlled aircraft flight. Now, there's something personally, I think the Virgin Galactic is more exciting. What do you think?
I would be utterly terrified to do either of them. That's one of the ironic things. Is like that. I'm not sure if I actually want to go to space. Sorry.
Oh my God, I'd be so excited to do either of those. To be honest,
I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until Branson concentrates on the balloons again. I'll go up in one of them.
Well, I mean, Branson himself almost lost his life in one of his balloons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in some ways, balloons are more dangerous because you're completely at the whim of the wind.
Good point. But, if you want to do a bomb gardener and just jump out, then, you're all good. Do you know what? I think about that so much. That is one of the most insane things I have ever witnessed in my life. And we watched it live as well. Can you believe? I can't believe we all watched this guy jump out. And then just starts to oscillate wildly.
Oh my God! Yeah, that bit dead. Was like, I was just thinking, there's no way he can get out of that. It's exactly the same. I was like, what's he gonna do? Yeah. And then he somehow manages to. Have you ever seen the documentary?
Yes, it's amazing and fascinating, and he is an absolute superhero. Amazing.
He seems to bottle it, doesn't it? It's like as soon as they put him in a spacesuit, it's like, no, I can't do it. He's like too claustrophobic in his spacesuit. He does seem to bottle it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then one of the guys from Google beat him, went much higher.
Yeah.
And barely bothered filming it. It was like, I'm just going to go higher. And then jumped out. What was his name?
I don't know. I didn't know about it. It's just he didn't barely bother filming it. It's just like, where you going, love? Just going out for a bit.
Just going out. Alan Eustace.
Okay.
Is that it? he went out and just went, I'm just going to jump higher. Just going to go from the jump out of the stratosphere. Job done.
Yeah.
And yeah, no one ever talks about Alan Eustace, but everyone talks about Baumgarten.
But did they have to? I mean, Red Bull's PR is just insane. Like that's probably the big.
Well, you would have thought that Google's PR is quite good.
That's a good point,
isn't it? I mean, what, the largest advertising agency in the world?
You literally have to use Google to find out about Red Bull.
Oh man, we've definitely gone off topic.
Yes,
but yeah, but it was fun.
It was
a nice little diversion.
Yeah.
Also in American space news, of course, President Biden has requested a 6.3% increase in NASA's budget.
Nice one, Joey. Well in, Joey.
1.5 billion more than 2021. That's 24.7 billion he's asking for. When you think about it, it's not that much, because Atlas V flew this week, and the primary payload, which was a military geo satellite, that's worth over $1 billion on its own. So, it's like it's only 24 of those satellites for the entire NASA space budget. And this is what they got to do out of it. They've got to do Artemis. So for the year, that's going to cost almost $7 billion. Then robotic exploration. So that's your things like Curiosity and Perseverance and all that lot. Then you've got space technology, like all the development of space technology. That's 1.4 billion. Then you've got aeronautics, which is NASA, working on projects like high efficient next generation airliners and supersonic airliners and stuff like that.
Well, that's
almost $1 billion.
Lovely. Love to see some of them.
There's been a really good increase, thank God, for climate science. 2.3 billion. That's an increase of 250 million. STEM education, that gets an increase of 20 million. So those were the two that were under threat from Trump, who didn't really believe in either of those two concepts. And research on the ISS is still 3 billion.
Oof! Wow. I mean, that's mainly that's linked to climate, though, isn't it? So
I did read this week an article that was kind of having a go at the Europeans about how their human exploration on the ISS had become a kind of almost PR stunt, with Thomas Pesquet doing things like launching Coldplay's new single and stuff like that. They were sort of saying, it's just, it's ESA's human exploration has become more of a PR stunt, which I think is very unfair.
Yeah.
But you've got to be careful, haven't you, that if you're spending that amount of money, that the astronauts on the ISS are genuinely doing proper research.
Yeah. Personally, though, I think that's where Coldplay's latest single belongs.
In space. They should have beamed it the other way.
Sorry, Chris. I don't mean that, Mr. Martin. I don't mean it. It's fashionable to have a go about Coldplay these days.
Well, it's been fashionable for about 15 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Poor old Coldplay.
Off topic again, but watched Eurovision last night, and I've definitely mellowed in my old age. I love watching Eurovision. I think it's fab.
I've always loved watching Eurovision.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Americans watch Eurovision.
There was the thing on Twitter about people explaining to America what Eurovision is, because they don't don't get it, and they don't get the silliness and the kitsch and the sort of irreverence and stuff like that. So they're just kind of a little bit like, what the hell is this? But yeah, we're sitting there playing Eurovision bingo. It's the funniest thing.
Oh man, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
There was a couple of things that were notable in Biden's budget request, and that is the acting administrator, Steve Jurzik, made no mention of the 2024 deadline. So basically, I'm definitely not going to be eating Eric's book.
Right.
There's just no way. There's just no way it's happening in 24.
No.
And they also doubled down on this idea that Artemis not only will deliver the first woman on the moon, but the first person of colour.
That's what they said.
And I spell that COLOR because it's not a phrase used in Britain at all, is it? That
POC?
Yeah, so Bridenstine was very happy with Biden's budget and really wanted to make sure that the Senate confirmed his successor, Bill Nelson, as quickly as possible. The only thing is, of course, this is a budget request, and I get very excited every time this happens, and then I realise, well, hang on a second, it's just a request.
Yeah, it's got to
get through it's got to go through a whole heap of people to sort of approve it and get it through, and there's bound to be some shenanigans and horse trading,
filibusters,
and all that kind of caper going on. So it's way too early to see if they'll get it. But what it does show is that Biden is behind NASA's endeavour to get to the moon.
I think that is the big news, isn't it? Because we just didn't quite know yet. We knew that Trump was really pro-space, but we didn't know where Biden, especially with him concentrating on the environment and stuff. It was a knife edge, but it's a good result.
It's funny, isn't it? I think Trump, for all his faults, of which there are many, it looks at the moment that he's sped up the trip to the moon.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening until 2028 before Trump, and it may happen before then.
I'd put my $5 on it still being 2028.
You'll put all your bitcoins on 2028.
I'm gonna put my 0.005
because they're gonna be worth nothing anyway. You really shouldn't have them anyway because of the environmental impact that they're having, Chris. Get rid of them immediately.
I have 0.005 bitcoins.
That's probably some poor polar bear swimming around trying to find an iceberg that it can't
don't
anymore.
Say that. Don't say
Yeah,
that.
I'm just saying that. I'm just telling you, Chris. That's how much that's what that cost. No, but that's mean.
Yeah,
that's mean.
I don't mind. What's mad? I don't even understand it all. I just went on my Revolut, the banking app, and it was like, "Do you want some crypto?" I was like, "Yeah, all right." And I bought some Bitcoin, some Ether, and some XLM. And XLM's the one that's worth like 20p for one. That's the one I'm banking on. If that gets to the height of Bitcoin, then I'll basically be starting my own space program.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, it's a bit like me and Fi. Yeah. There's this one that works on your mobile phone.
Yeah.
Where you mine it from your mobile phone and it doesn't use any battery.
Oh.
I'm not holding my breath. But like you, I might be able to start my own space program if that works out.
We can team up.
Oh my god. This is it.
Yes, let's make a deal by 2028.
I hope the patrons don't mind that I'm putting all their money into cryptocurrency.
Sorry about me.
Can't afford to run the podcast anymore because it's all crashed. Last bit of American news. Sierra Nevada Corporation are spinning off their space division. So we won't be talking about the SNC Dream Chaser anymore, just Sierra Space Dream Chaser.
I like it.
So, that I think what that means is that they have confidence that particular division of their company is going to grow massively. So I think they're confident in that product of the Dream Chaser. So yeah, that's one to watch.
Fab.
Shall we move to India before we get to China and their fantastic achievements?
Yeah, but before we do, send a much love to India. Wow. It's a tough situation there.
Unbelievably tough. And of course, the ISRO are doing their bit, the Indian Space Research Organisation, by supplying oxygen. A lot of their efforts have gone towards that. So, yeah, unfortunately, it does mean that India's efforts are kind of on hold. And of course, it's massively important for the whole world, isn't it, that we kind of get this under control?
Definitely. There will be time. There will be time for this in the future. We just need to sit tight on this one and get through it. But yeah, much love to India, Brazil, all the places that are really feeling it now.
Well, yeah. Well, they've got some good space news. There are a couple of companies, Skyroot and Agnikul, have both raised $11 million, which I think in Indian sort of rocket development terms is quite a lot, right? And basically they want to start, growing their companies. Now, the thing that's good here, I think, is that this is the sort of start of a kind of internal space race of commercial suppliers, which hadn't happened before in India because the ISRO were kind of the main client and owned all the intellectual property when they were sort of spending money on various companies to help them build rockets and satellites and stuff like this. But in 2020, the finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, announced that private companies could use ISRO facilities and services, right?
Yeah.
But before that, all that intellectual property would belong to the ISRO, but it doesn't anymore. So this means that Skyroot, Agnico, they can go out and start investing in their own intellectual property and try and get money to come in, not just from ISRO, but from internal corporations and from maybe global corporations as well to help them build up this capability.
Yeah, that's
right?
great. That's great. Spreading the net, definitely.
Yeah, well, and it looks, this is a kind of critical point because it's hard to get that internal and external investment at the moment. Not many external companies are investing in India like they could be. But the big one is labor is quite hard to get through. The skilled, educated people in India, there's not enough of them. But this is the thing that I just can't get over, is more than half of India's population is under 25.
Huh. That's incredible.
It's unbelievable. So there's 600 million Indians under 25.
My God.
So that is a talent pool waiting to happen, isn't it? I mean, that is, we could be talking about a massive explosion of thought and intellectual progress.
Yeah.
Happening in India very, very shortly.
And the other thing with that is that, like sort of cultural renaissance and financial booms generally follow major events like the pandemic, so, that's really poised, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's massively poised. And what's incredible is that China's population is going to be shrinking massively, and that's never a good sign for an economy, whereas India's is going to be going absolutely crazy and overtaking China quite shortly.
Why is China's population going smaller? Is it because they're killing so many people?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously they had their one-child policy, but I just think it's because their middle class has grown, and that always happens. I mean, it's the same in Britain, France, everywhere. Like in France, they pay you to have a third kid, for goodness sake.
That's amazing.
It's not great. Your economy stagnates a little bit when that happens. But India's got this unbelievable resource that's just about to sort of almost come of age, where you've got just millions. I mean, 600 million.
It's incredible.
That's, under 25 is that's just incredible, isn't it? I was just like, oh my God. So yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there. So India, I think, are going to become more and more serious players in the same way that China have. And China's demonstration of getting a rover onto the Mars surface, soft landing it, and now we're getting pictures of the rover wheeling off the platform and down onto the surface on Mars. You've got to say that is absolutely incredible that China have done all that in such a short amount of time.
Definitely,
and so they really are, that kind of just says, right, we really are a massive space power now.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare because Europe are falling maybe a little bit behind there because we're having a few issues, like the fact that we didn't get our rover off the ExoMars 2020 mission didn't happen, so it's ended up being ExoMars 2022. And they're still messing around with the parachute. So the good news is that they've been working super hard at NASA's JPL facility in California, testing parachutes, and they look like they're sort of getting there with them. I mean, there's some really good pictures and footage of the parachute tests and just how difficult it is, because the parachutes for the Rosalind Franklin rover are insane. They're just ridiculous. 15-meter wide first stage parachute,
wow,
and then a 35-meter wide second stage parachute.
Oh, I had no idea. They were so enormous.
Yeah, no, these things are absolutely gargantuan.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they've been having all these problems. So so there's like a parachute, a little drogue parachute comes out that pulls that 15-meter wide parachute out, but that's at supersonic speeds. So the way that it unfurls and the way that it comes out of its bag and all that has to be like as frictionless as possible, so that there's no damage to the cables. Like any kind of heating on the fabric will weaken it, and then it won't work properly. and then as soon as it gets down to subsonic speeds, you get this massive 35-meter wide parachute coming out. And you just go, oh my God. So yeah, they're still having they're still not having problems. It looks like they've solved the problems that they were plagued with. And you've got these two competing parachute companies, it looks like, Airborne Systems and Ares Cosmos, who are they're both sort of neck and neck with these parachutes. But of course, you've got the high altitude drop test now in June, which should be really interesting. So that's going to happen in Sweden. Sweden. High altitude balloon drop test. So maybe you can go up in one of those.
Yeah, Samuel.
That's what you want to do. And that's from 29 kilometers high. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
And so they're going to drop them. They're going to test them. Of course, they're really hard to do, these high altitude drop tests, because obviously the weather conditions have to be exactly right, et cetera. And so these ground testing facilities that JPL have sort of helped European Space Agency out with have been absolutely critical to getting this back on track. And even then, it seems like it's quite stressful how even this seems like it's only just going to be ready in time, because they're still going to be testing in 2022 when we're supposed to be launching to Mars.
TikTok.
It's just like, yeah. So it's like, oh no. So yeah, and then of course they won't see them opening for real when they arrive at Mars until 2023. But yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and so obviously so many people are involved in that, including an Oxford company called Vorticity have been involved with helping get these parachutes working and et cetera.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah,
lovely.
Yeah, so places all over the shop.
Over the shop.
Turin, Aprilia, very, very hard thing to do. Let's just hope that they get these parachutes sorted and that they're all working properly.
I have every faith in them.
It makes me think that they really were actually probably nowhere near ready for that 2020 launch window.
No chance if they're only doing that now. But yeah, again, we've got to bear in mind that it's been quite the 12 months. So,
well, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, the COVID was definitely the nail in the coffin on that 2020 launch window. But I don't think it, even without COVID, that kind of says to me that they weren't ready. They would have never have had time to do all those tests and turn it around in time.
Yeah, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. That's what me nan always
said. It is
said.
worth doing. Well, it's definitely not. It's definitely not worth building the Rosalind Franklin only for it to smash into the surface of Mars, because you couldn't be bothered to test the parachutes properly. So, yeah, I guess that's it. You've just got to make sure it works. And you think, God, the effort that goes into just the parachutes, like. This is years and years and years of effort and multinational companies, ESA and NASA, scratching their heads to get this working.
Yeah.
Get this. There's an enormous iceberg that's just crunched off the western side of the Ron ice shelf. Spotted by the British Antarctica Survey. So the images come from Copernicus Sentinel-1. And guess how big this iceberg is?
Go on.
170 kilometres in length and 25 kilometres wide.
Oh my!
So it's
goodness.
It's quite a bit bigger than Mallorca.
Oh, I love Mallorca.
Yeah. Oh God, Mallorca's a beautiful place.
Gorgeous.
Apart from Magaluf, obviously.
Well, yeah, don't go anywhere near there.
But
no chance.
But yeah, Mallorca, what a great place. But imagine that. So that thing's now currently the largest iceberg in the world, and it's cut adrift, and it's out there.
Where's it heading?
Ooh. Don't know. Liverpool, I think. Go
25 kilometres wide. I don't think that's going to get down the Mersey.
It's not even going to get down the Bristol Channel.
No.
Although that would be epic if like an iceberg it just got wedged in the Bristol Channel. I could walk over to Wales.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
With a polar bear on it saying, "Don't use crypto." But then that wouldn't happen because the polar bear's not from there. It'd be a penguin, wouldn't it? It would be an emperor penguin saying, "Stop using crypto." Can you take little trips to it and have a little sort of walk around on it and stuff like that? That'd be great.
I'd imagine it's quite hard to actually get on a iceberg, though, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. But you could helicopter in, yeah.
Lithuania, congratulations, Lithuania. One of my, as regular listeners know, one of my favourite countries. Vilnius being one of my favourite cities.
Yeah.
They've become an associate member of ESA.
Ah, well,
so well done. And as a result, it means you've got a little bit more time to apply to be an astronaut.
Have we got any prospective astronauts in our listenership?
I hope so.
Yeah.
They must be. 18th of June. So get your application in. I might try it myself.
Give it a whirl.
I think I think I'm on the cusp of being able to do it. I think you're not allowed to apply if you're over 50.
I'm not going to apply, as previously mentioned.
Yeah, because you're a wimp.
Hey, but I'm a 42-year-old wimp. So
we should quickly mention New Zealand news.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
That the Electron has failed, which was really disappointing. 20th Electron launch, unfortunately, the second stage just span out of control, some kind of anomaly, and lost the 2 Black Sky global satellites that it was carrying, which is obviously a real pity for everyone involved. But they did recover the booster that safely parachuted down in the ocean.
Well, there's a plus.
There's a plus, but that's bad.
Yeah.
They've had 2 failures in a year, so that's not good for them. But hey, they're still a long way ahead of their competition in terms of small rocket launching.
Definitely keep your chin up there, New Zealand. Keep your chin up.
It's a hard game, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
This rocket science. This week, not so much in the UK. You'll be able to go out and see the blood red moon.
Ooh.
Or a blood red moon, because of course it's a lunar eclipse.
Wow. So are we not going to be able to see it here because the weather's appalling?
No, well, almost certainly that, yes, but no, it's we're not really in the right latitude to see it. So it's much better if you're over in America and parts of East Asia. But you might be able to see a little bit of it at 12:15 a.m. on 26th of May. You might be able to go out and see it.
Okay, amazing.
And it will be live streamed on YouTube.
I'll just watch that.
But there was a really good article in Forbes actually about what it would look like from the moon watching that event. And the cool thing, of course, is that red color comes from the fact that if you were standing on the moon, you'd essentially see all the sunsets around Earth. So obviously the sun goes behind the Earth and the Earth completely blocks it out. But the rays of light from the sun would get bent round through the atmosphere. So you see the sunsets, and it's the color of those sunsets all the way around that would circle the Earth is what makes the moon look red.
Beautiful.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it gets freezing cold on the moon as well.
Yeah.
Like as in the temperature drop is like intense. In the same way on Earth, when you see a solar eclipse, it actually gets pretty cold pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But imagine that like loads worse on the on the moon.
Yeah, it's already a bit chilly, isn't it?
It's already a bit chilly, but because there's no atmosphere, nothing's holding the heat, so the temperature drops like very, very quickly and quite substantially. And of course, you've got no solar power, so that if you've got no batteries, you can't keep yourself warm. So it's actually it's quite dangerous for certain bits of equipment to be out in a solar eclipse when you're on the moon.
It's not a friendly place, space,
really
is it?
Space is absolutely brutal. It really is. It's like you do one thing wrong and you're done for, basically.
Yeah. All we've got to worry about on Earth is a massive iceberg, floating into us. You go out there, whew, iceberg. You'd be wishing for an iceberg, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of gin and tonics, isn't there, in that iceberg?
Oof. Yes, please.
I thought I'd finish on a tardigrade story.
I love tardigrades. They're one of my favourite things in the world.
I love tardigrades. I love tardigrades. So, yes, I saw a very good article, sciencemag.org via Nature. And, in 2019, my favourite mission, the one that I was saying, this is the best mission of the year.
Yeah.
Was the Bereshit Israeli attempt to land on the moon.
Yeah.
And they almost did it, but they crashed into the moon. And then it turned out, quite controversially, that they were carrying tardigrades that they told no one about. Right? And then everyone went, what the hell? And so they were carrying tardigrades, and everyone was like, oh, well, now it's crashed on the moon. Tardigrades are so tough that now you've gone and contaminated the moon with tardigrades.
You colonized.
This researcher, PhD student at Queen Mary University of London, Alejandra Traspas, she was very curious and wanted to see if they were still alive. So Traspas and her supervisor, Mark Birchall, from the University of Kent, they sort of looked into it and they fed 20 tardigrades up with their moss and mineral water, fed them all up and then put them into hibernation, which is this weird state that tardigrades can go into that basically makes them this ridiculously hardy animal that can survive space and nuclear bombs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they froze them. And they stuck them in nylon bullets and started firing them at increasing speeds using this 2-stage light gas gun, which is like some kind of like NASA ridiculous gun that can fire at insane speeds.
Yeah.
Shooting the bullets into sand. Right, shooting these nylon bullets full of tardigrades into sand to see if they could survive these impacts.
Yeah.
And they found they could survive impacts up to 900 meters a second. So they could survive an impact at 3,000 kilometers an hour. And a shock pressure of 1.14 gigapascals. And then Traspas said, above those speeds, they just mush, which is not really surprising, is it?
I am a little bit disappointed that they are actually mortal.
But I mean, this is incredible. So the conclusion of the study is that the Bereshit would have hit the moon at a similar kind of impact speed. However, because it was in a metal frame, the shock wave would have been very much above this 1.14 gigapascals. So they determined that none of the tardigrades would have survived, that they definitely all died. Right. Now, some people instantly jumped on this, including Charles Cockle of University of Edinburgh, and said, what this paper is showing is that complex multicellular animals cannot be easily transferred. In other words, Earth is a biogeographical island with respect to animals. They're trapped like a flightless bird on an island.
That was amazing. It sounds like he was shouting it at the barman in his local.
Yeah, well, he's obviously very annoyed with the whole idea of panspermia.
Yeah.
But Traspas disagreed and said that panspermia is obviously hard, but it's not impossible, and that meteorites hit the Earth at speeds of around 11 kilometers a second, which is obviously much faster, and 8 kilometers per second. So it's highly unlikely that tardigrades would survive. But she says parts of the meteorite impacting Earth or Mars would experience lower shock pressures that a tardigrade could live through. So it might be, obviously most of the rock is going to get this massive impact pressure, but some bits might not, and you might therefore have some of the tardigrades survive their journey, and so it doesn't rule out panspermia as a way of, say, a meteorite hitting Earth, chucking up a bunch of rocks with tardigrades clinging on for their dear life, and them landing on the moon or landing on various other bodies in the solar system. So there is still a chance, despite this study, that you can have panspermia, that microbes could survive being blasted around the solar system by various impacts. So, the case it's still not panspermia case closed.
No.
It's panspermia, doesn't look as likely again, but it's still not beyond the realms of possibility.
I want to see what else we can do with tardigrades.
Well, I mean, the poor buggers, they've been shot as bullets, dehydrated, radiated, put into space. Oh my God.
What's next? They're going to play them the new Coldplay single.
Oh, and they got played the new Coldplay single. I mean, Jesus Christ. How hard can life be?
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, good for tardigrades.
Love it.
Little moss piglets. Oh, great.
Sweet.
They deserve to be. They deserve to be the geek's favourite animal, which they most certainly are, aren't they?
Oh, I absolutely love them.
They're
just the best things in the world. And I loved it's on in Cosmos, Neil deGrasse Tyson's version, where he says if it is obviously Carl Sagan's words, but it's like if a microscopic alien life form came to Earth, then they would assume that the Earth belongs to the tardigrades because they are so successful in what they do. Like they'd just be like, "It's theirs. It's their planet." Don't know what these massive things are. They're a bit dozy. Those human things. But these guys are on point.
Well, there's only 600 million of them under 25 on this subcontinent.
Yeah. Amazing. Sweet. What a great little story.
Checking out the hardiness of tardigrades. Unfortunately, I wanted to say no tardigrades were hurt in this process, but clearly that's just simply not true.
I know, but we can still change the name to hardigrades.
Do tardigrades have a soul?
Ooh.
Chris, that's what I want to know.
Well, I'm going to ponder that.
They've got 6 feet, so I guess they've got 6 souls. Thanks for sitting through another Space News Week.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's a great way to spend some of my 10-day quarantine.
Glad to have you back in England, old bean.
It's fab to be back. Really good to be back on old Blighty. So yeah, it's nice. I'll be missing my Norway life. It's been fab. But yeah, I'm back in the back in the pool.
Back in the pool, going down the Cavern Club, watching pop bands.
Pretty much all I do.
No doubt.
Yeah, and then go and watch football.
Yeah. Like all Scousers.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I should just quickly check what the scores are, because we're recording this at a very inconvenient time for an actual Liverpool fan. Oh. It turns out that Liverpool have...
It's 2-0 to Liverpool.
Liverpool make the top 4.
How's Everton doing?
They lost 5-0.
That's my team.
Well done, Reg. Right. So, Chris, if people have enjoyed the podcast, where should they go?
If I was somebody who enjoyed it, I would probably go to interplanetary.org.uk.
Oh, brilliant. And there you can find links out to all the different providers. But you can also find a link to www.patreon.com/interplanetary if you want to join us on the Discord. Some of the Discordians have become, or Spodcats as they're officially called,
Yes.
have become co-hosts as well in their time. So that's, so it's a good place to be. And we have lots of fun there. Again, thanks very much, Chris.
Cheers, Matthew.
Enjoy your quarantine.
I will.
And at this point, I'm going to say bye, bye, Spodcats.
Bye, Spodcats.
And
Bye,
that is
Spodcats.
the wrap.
Bye, Spodcats.